But moving aside from that, like because obviously I grew up like with these things, um, and obviously as I've grown, I've kind of shaped my own understanding of the world and the universe and like of what I believe.
Yeah.
But that being said, even though when I was like deep in the trenches,
Yeah. Yeah.
even when I was like, yeah, this is what we're going for here, even then, you know, even then, I would watch these religious movies, specifically like the God is Not Dead movies, and I would,
Oh.
this is some horse shit. Like I would
Oh.
the greatest horse shit ever made. And most like fucking God religion based like movies are the worst.
Oh
They're the
yeah.
worst, man.
Yeah. I mean, I've been lucky to dodge most of those except for I actually like, I like Passion of the Christ. Like there's some
The
great
Passion of the Christ is pretty good.
yeah, there's some great religious films. I still want to Ten Commandments is on my watch list with Charles Charlton Heston, right?
Hmm.
But yeah, biblical epics are awesome. But yes, those like infomercial for the religion type
Hmm.
movies, yeah,
Hmm.
I've seen trailers for those, and that's all I'm like, fuck,
You've never
fuck,
seen one of those? You never
yeah.
seen one of those fucking movies? Oof, man.
I will tell you though, I was exposed like in the because I was in the Catholic church growing up, and then we went to the Lutheran church, so I was in that for a little while, and both of those I was exposed to sort of the after school special type shit, you know.
Hmm.
Um, I don't know if I remember anything really specific from those. Uh,
Yeah.
I mean, they're real. Yeah, they're always just really silly and so
Yeah.
obviously that's their job to be so preachy.
No, dude,
Do you have like a
I
memory of anyone that stands out in your mind as like just horrific or like scenes? Like what's your
dude, listen,
experience?
man, listen. Like this is one of those things where it's like some of the movies that I've given like really poor ratings on my letterbox. Like if you go, are these movies?
Yeah,
Like
yeah.
I think I've seen like God's Not Dead one, maybe two, but definitely one. And it
Oh,
has like a one. It has like a half a star on Rotten Tomatoes. It's not Rotten Tomatoes on my letterbox. It's like half a star movie, because it was just horrendous. It was such a bad like movie experience because we watched this at church, and the church made such a big event out of it, where it's like everybody they made it one of those community events where it's like you pay. It's like, oh, we're gonna pay to watch this fucking movie at church on a Saturday night.
you're gonna
Instead of
tithe.
doing it, instead of doing anything else. Because they're because if there's something that good that churches do, there's a lot of churches just do a lot of things for the community, and I can't hate on churches for that.
Oh,
Um,
absolutely not. Yeah, of
a lot of
course.
them provide like meals, financial support, a lot of it, through the work that
They
they
just make
do.
you sit through a sermon first. They hold your
Exactly.
sandwich hostage.
Exactly. They hold you hostage, but they do a lot of work in the community, to this day, actively. So I have to commend churches for that. But we're doing that for the sake of, getting funds to then be able to like, provide meals and stuff for people. So it's like, oh, all the church members come and let's do this. Like, all right, whatever.
Yeah.
But we did that, and I go and I sit down. And by this point, you know, I was already like, by this point, I think I was like 14 or something.
Yeah.
So, and I'm saying that because this is like around the age where I was starting to think about movies like in a more serious way, where I was like, oh, there's such a thing as good filmmaking. There's
Mm.
such a thing as like good storytelling, that's like I'm starting to comprehend, And also I had been exposed to a lot of movies that since then I've come to understand that I was like, oh, this is great, this is what's this is like that Scorsese meme that I referenced I think last week.
Cinema.
Like, cinema, absolute cinema. You know, so I had seen some classics by that point too. I'd seen some Tarantino films. I had seen some Scorsese films. I had seen some shit. So I sit on this theater. I sit at church, and we start watching. Fucking God's Not Dead, and immediately I'm like, oh my god, like immediately I'm like, what is like? Oh, I'm like, what? Oh my god, this is horrendous. You know, um, this is like the dialogue, how the information is being presented, how like how the characters that are like non-believers are presented.
Yeah, they're presented as idiots or like snobs.
Exactly. Like the movie presents like any character that it's like atheist or non-believing or that has even a different opinion. It doesn't matter that it's like, even if there's a character that is like, oh, I believe, there's like a force in the universe, blah blah blah. Even people who are like spiritual characters, it's like, no, you're wrong, but you're just wrong differently.
Yeah.
Everybody's wrong here. We all have to arrive at the same conclusion.
Yeah. It's like we're allowed to question as long as all our questions beget the correct answers.
Exactly. So, suffice it to say, this is a movie. Spoilers for
Edward, the spoilers in the title that God's not dead.
God's not dead. Spoilers for God's not dead, and it is in the title, isn't it? Dude, I mean, like again. So I'm watching this movie, and I'm becoming like I'm seething. I'm infuriated. I'm like, this is some garbage. So I'm like, I don't care about the message of the movie. This is horrendous. And so the movie gets around the climax because thankfully I've forgotten quite a bit of this movie. And the climax of this film is that all of the characters that the movie has been like, oh, God, all of those characters that have been like being preached at and they've been like denying it, all of those characters are invited to a concert, right? This is how the movie climaxes. They're all invited to a concert for like a big religious band.
Ugh.
And in going to this concert or like in the build up to the concert, things happen to them. Like, oh, their mom got in an accident, their little brother is critically in the hospital, their girlfriend broke up with them. Like shit happens to these people and it all brings them down to like some kind of low point. And the movie, this happens to everybody, right? All of the characters, this happens to all of them, ignoring anything about storytelling, about like some bullshit. It's just like, oh, coincidentally, something bad happened to everybody that pushes them to be like, oh, God, please, and God answers everybody's prayers. And so to celebrate that all of their prayers have been answered, they all go to this concert. And then the movie ends with the concert and everybody just like being happy at the concert. This is what this fucking movie is. This is how it ends. And I'm in this church watching this movie and just being like, what the fuck? Just being like, absolutely just being like, what in the actual fuck? And as this happens, everybody at my church, that's like a standing ovation, starts singing and clapping. And I'm, oh my God. I'm like dying. Like, I can't believe this. So then the movie ends. And again, dude, I'm furious. So I'm like, this is a huge waste of time. This is a piece of shit movie that was just preachy as heck. It was nonsense. It made no sense. So after the movie's done, I say to the people that I was with, I go like, could you believe this? Trying to get some sympathy. I was like, can you fucking believe what we just watched? Like this whole shit? And they were just like, I know, right? How great!
Of course.
Dude, I had no friends. I had nobody that I could be like, can you believe this?
You had no one to lean on.
Somehow this movie, and if you look up this movie has like shitty reviews. It's not even a good movie. But somehow this movie, everybody convinced themselves that this was like a great movie. Or maybe they were just like acting like it was just because they'd be like, oh, I can't say that this is bad. Otherwise people are gonna think that I'm like a demon.
Yeah. Get thee behind me, Satan.
So then it just proceeds. The next 20 minutes before I'm able to leave, proceed to just be like a circle jerk with everybody being like, oh, how great, how impactful. We have to recommend this movie to everybody. And you know that it's one of those movies that ends with everybody like texting somebody. Like the movie ends like when they're at the concert, everybody's like texting each other, like, have messages and their moms. It's one of those movies that tries to end with like a call your parents kind of thing.
Yeah.
So then after
spread the good word.
Exactly. So then after this, everybody's just talking about how everybody has to share the movie. People are texting each other, calling each other, and I'm just witnessing it.
Right.
And I'm like, oh my God, dude, this was one of the worst experiences of my early childhood.
Everyone, I have great news. There's this guy named Jesus, and he's gonna torture us all. But if you love him, he won't.
Dude, and I couldn't believe it. And then years later, like I think when I was like 18, I met somebody who then asked me, without a shred of irony or anything like that, straight faced. They were like, "Have you seen God's Not Dead?" You know, and I was like, "Oh my fucking god!" I was like, "No way!" I was like, "No way! This is the what you're fucking asking me." And I was like, "Yeah, I saw God's Not Dead." And they were like, "Oh man, if you saw God's Not Dead, then you have to see God's Not Dead too."
Two, yeah. Oh my god.
Yeah. No, I'm not seeing it.
Oh,
It
yeah.
was just.
That's horrific, man. I
Mm.
that's so funny. That it's so funny because you have like a guy named a guy like Nietzsche who said God's dead, and he was like a
Right.
brilliant man, and then the rebuttal is just like this little squeak from these filmmakers. You know,
Yeah,
I
exactly.
I had an experience
And
that
you know that in the movie they make fun of that. You know that in the movie they have like philosophy classes and people are talking about that and the teacher's like, "Oh no, 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 guys, God, ugh." You already know that. You already know
yeah.
that's the fucking movie.
Well, yeah, I was gonna touch on that because it reminded me of I've seen that in like pamphlets too, where they make it's like the atheist evolution believing, have a scientific professor who's like a
Mhm,
snob, and I remember when I was a kid, my uncle would he would come for Christmas and he never had presents for us because he was always like running super super late and
mhm,
he never got his shopping done, so he would just bring us like things that he found and like wrap them really quick. Like he would bring us stuff that he found lying around his house and like wrap it up really
mhm.
quick and just be like, oh, here's your present, Merry Christmas. and and dude, one year, I shit you not, he got me a pamphlet
Mhm.
and it was like a religious pamphlet, and it's a creationist pamphlet, and on the front it has a gorilla like eating a banana, and it says like Big Daddy or something like that with like a question mark. You can look this up, Big Daddy, on Google. But
Uh,
it was the same thing where you go through it. It's like this professor teaching about evolution, and then the whole pamphlet is just some student standing up and being like, "Excuse me, actually, there's no evidence that whales once had legs. These are just vestigial bones." And like at the end of the pamphlet, like the professor gets fired. They're like, "Oh my god, I can't believe
oh
you let
yeah,
a
here it is. Here.
Big Daddy."
Yeah.
Dude, I remember just that year just being like, "What the fuck are
Do
you?"
you see
Wait,
it?
let me see. Yeah, there it is, dude. Oh my god, I had it
Yes.
for years too. I would go flip through it and just laugh my ass off at it.
Yeah.
But it was the same exact thing where they just make the professor in the pamphlet look like a fucking idiot. Um,
It says here, Big Daddy. It says the most widely distributed anti-evolution publication. Oh my god.
Because I think for a while my uncle, like, I don't, dude, I want to know how he got his hands on that. To be honest with you, I mean, he went to like a mega church for a while, I think,
Yeah,
but
probably from there. Probably from there.
oh god. Anyway, yeah, I love ripping religion, but fuck, Jesus, it gets
Well,
frustrating after a while.